Welcome to Better Sex, where you get the information and inspiration to create and enjoy your best possible sex life. Join your host, sex therapist Jessa Zimmerman, as she brings you expert guests, helpful tips, knowledge, and strategies to improve your intimate relationships. And now, your host, Jessa Zimmerman.
Hey, it's Jessa. Welcome back to Better Sex Podcast. I am thrilled you're here. So glad you've discovered it and that you've chosen to spend some time with me. You know, this week's episode, it's something I've only done a couple of times so far, which is go back to a guest and talk to them again. And I have a couple of favorites that I have been just dying to get back to, and Dr. Sara is one of them. I interviewed Sara Nasserzadeh probably a year and a half ago, and we were talking about the concept of submergent love versus emergent love. So the whole, what she called the orange feeling of passion that we expect to feel, especially in the Western world, in our relationships, which is basically intoxicating and is time limited. And so we had this whole concept of emergent love, which is building love, which is love that builds over time, which is love is more of an action in a state of being. So we are revisiting that a little bit through the lens of the research that she has done since then to really identify the characteristics of people individually and as couples that correlate with ongoing relationship satisfaction, that make couples satisfied to thriving. What she has done is created a validated tool and identify the qualities that really allow people to create and maintain this emergent love. Love is an outcome. Love is something that they can build and grow and enjoy over the long term. So I'm so excited about this. She is, not only is she a therapist, but she's a researcher. She's a speaker. She consults to the UN. I mean, she is so busy and so productive and creating all of this work. And I'm thrilled and honored that she took the time again to be on the podcast. I hope you learn a lot. I hope you enjoy it. I hope it's really, really useful. The Better Sex Podcast is brought to you by the Sex Without Stress online course. It's a course for couples to escape the cycle of disappointment, avoidance, and pressure in your sex life. So if you're in a pretty good relationship, there's a lot of love and goodwill, but sex is your struggle, this could be for you. You work in the privacy of your own home and at your own pace to create a sex life you can both look forward to. If you want to learn more, go to sexwithoutstress.com/program. Sara, thank you so much for being with me again on the show.
Absolutely. Thank you for having me back.
Yeah. I'm excited to touch base again around the concepts we talked about. Gosh, it must be almost 2 years ago now. Maybe not quite that, a year and a half ago.
Yeah, I think so. I think it was a year and a half ago, and a lot has happened since then.
Right. So if you don't mind, I wanted to start with just a little bit of a recap over that first episode when we were talking about submergent love versus emergent love. And I'll include the link so people can go back and listen to that one, but just so that they can have the framework for today.
Absolutely. So last time we talked about different types of love, right? And just to put it into perspective a little bit more, and as a matter of recap, there are several types of love that some people are familiar with, some people are not, and they are mostly rooted in the ancient Greek. But then without us knowing, we actually fall for them. We actually follow them, right? Yeah. So for example, one is Eros, which is the passionate love. Okay. And in English language these days, when we talk about love, that's the immediate link that we make. Passionate, right? And then Philia is the affectionate love that mostly we use for family members. And without describing it, we are hoping that people understand where we're coming from.
Right.
Part of the problem. Storge is the friendship love. Ludus is the game playing love. Mania is the possessive love. Pragma, practical love. Flascia is the self-love, and agape, selfless love, right?
Huh. Okay.
So if we have that in the back of our mind, first of all, I really highly recommend that anybody who is listening to this podcast, any couple specifically, they go online and just look for love scale, right? Love
Okay.
attitude scale, or it's freely available. They can just take the inventory, like the scale, right? And then they realize that what is their default. If they are high ranking in philia, for example, versus mania, that's an indication, because many of the couples who come to me, and I'm pretty sure it happens to you as well, Jessa, because I hear from many colleagues that people come to us and present as, I love my partner, but I'm not in love with them. I don't know.
Yes.
So there's a little bit of a confusion. I find it very hopeful for them to go back and say that, yes, when I say I love you, I really truly mean it, and it's true.
Yeah.
But
Yeah.
just a different type of love, and just to be able to differentiate it with themselves, within themselves, and within the relationship or relationships that they're in, it would be very helpful. And the other thing is, my humble contribution to the field is to bring emergent love and introduce, well, kind of decode submergent and emergent love, especially in committed relationships.
Yeah.
Right?
Yeah.
So last time, as we talked, as you mentioned, we talked about submergent love, meaning that two people meet, in most cases two people, sometimes more than two people, they meet and then they spend a lot of time together. And if you imagine that two circles on top, start
Right.
with that, and then come in the middle, they are kind of overlapping, and then if you go down this pyramid, you will see that two circles are completely overlapping with each other, right?
Yeah.
That's the state that we are over the moon. We are completely out of this world, right? That's submergent.
Right. So that's that whole in love, infatuation, honeymoon period. That first roughly 18 months, right, where our brain chemistry is going crazy.
Yes, that's Helen Fisher's research, right?
Yes.
So average 2 years. Absolutely. So it's okay, and it's beautiful to do that.
Yeah.
The problem is, many of our couples are stuck there, and they don't realize that that is just something to build up the relationship from, right?
Yeah.
It's not a prerequisite, by the way. If you don't feel like that, don't feel like a terrible person, because another group that I consult often are individuals who are dating and who are not sure, is this the person? Do I need to know in my heart? Do I need to know? But why am I looking at other people still? So these are the things that a little bit of a confusion that we have. Why am I not overwhelmed by butterflies when I see this person walk into the room? So these are the things that I feel, if we start questioning the status quo, we are going to help people to look at their relationships and the way that they put foundation for a relationship in a way we give them some accountability, some sense of agency, rather than something that just happens to you without your knowledge.
Right. Because the submergent kind just happens to you. And you're right. I have couples in my practice, even right now, who were best friends and then have gotten together, and they skipped that whole stage, and they're really afraid, like, oh, are we doomed because we didn't have that? How do we build, something that's exciting and lifelong if we didn't have that?
Exactly.
So you're saying it's nice, but it's optional.
It's optional. And actually, for those couples that come to you like that, I would say this is beautiful that you have many kinds of love. Let's just make sure that whatever that is needed for a committed long-term relationship is also there.
Yeah.
So that the emergent love could be inspired and could be created. Because emergent love is a category that I would like to add to this list.
Yeah.
That a love that is going to be created, right, is going to be there. Like, for example, love of motherhood, which is completely politically, like, it's very much politicized, that as soon as the baby comes out of you, you fall in love with them. That is absolutely not true for
right.
many
people. That's also submergent, right? Like, if that happens to you, that's just something that happens to you, not the thing you build. Yeah.
Exactly. So it's nothing that you can build. So I have a little bit of issue with this dichotomy that we live in a world that we think life is all about choices. And then yet when it comes to the most fundamental aspect of our lives, right? As if all the choices are ripped apart and, like ripped away. And that really pained me to see my couples in those kind of pain, right? So we talked about submergent and then now emergent. Emergent type of love is basically, if you remember from our conversation before, we talked about 5 ingredients that I went back, I studied for decades or so, 312 couples that I've seen individually across the world.
Okay.
So I studied based on ground theory, right? So I went through my psychotherapy notes just to see what are the things that are emerging for these couples who subjectively report that they are not only satisfied, but they're also thriving over the years in their relationships, right? So I asked, and then I went through the notes. I contacted some of them and just to crystallize, and just to make sure that I got this right. And then so 5 ingredients I introduced before as the shared vision, compassion / empathy, because they're 2 different things, right? And then physical attraction, and 2 other ones that were respect. Respect actually was a very important one. I'm glad I remembered that one. And so and then I don't know if I mentioned the shared values, so compatibility based on values. So these were the 5, right? But up to that point, I could describe emergent love because they often told me that love was not necessarily the prerequisite, or that type of love, even if we had it evolved over time to something else. And our good colleague, Dr. John Gottman, puts it as compassionate love. But there are different, ways to look at it, right? And then the other aspect that I found was this was basically still my clinical observation and qualitative research. So I really wanted something more solid. So that I could really generalize this information and any couple could take it and do something with it.
Right.
So then I put it into a survey with 360 individuals and 159 couples, US representative sample. What it means is the inclusion criteria for this survey was couples who identified as being in committed relationships. It could be monogamous or not. Different sexual orientations then, and or again, relationship orientations. And then other categories, as is like, for example, they reported that they are in 11 months, from 11 months in committed relationship to 40 years. Committed relationship. And they rank themselves as satisfied to thriving. So these and all socioeconomic background were included. And we also controlled for educational level because previous studies showed that educational level has some links with satisfaction that couples report. So that is the sample. And if anybody wants to know more, please feel free.
And so this sample, though, was U.S. couples?
U.S. based.
Because I know in your own work, you've worked all over the world. Right? So,
This is US based. Thank you for clarifying. So based on that, we came up with some factors so there are 4 levels, 4 identifiers, right? One is the individual fundamentals, meaning what? If you look at the relationship as a dance, that you are getting together, you move together,
right?
Freedom, right? Before you get to the dance, you need to do some stretches or you're going to hurt yourself or something, right? So at least in my case, I'm a clumsy dancer if I don't do that. So that's really important to know. Individual fundamentals that we found was ability to connect, moral values, positive thoughts and emotions, so being more present and mindful in the present moment, healthy financial attitude, and abstract thinking.
So these are qualities of individuals who report being satisfied to thriving in their relationship.
Exactly. So these are the ones, and what is hopeful about this, what I'm hoping with this, is that some of my clients come and say that, well, you know what, I'm just screwed by my parents. There is no way that I can get the hell out of that trap, and there's no way that I can have a thriving relationship. But this is hopeful for me because as therapists, we know we can help them.
We can improve in these things, right? We're not handed a sort of a deck of cards and that's all we've got, right? We can improve on those qualities.
Absolutely. So look at the sense of agency and hopefulness in this, right? So that's that. The next level of this is dyadic fundamentals. Dyadic fundamentals are the absolute non-negotiables that a couple should have in relation to one another to be able to create that third entity called that emergent love and relationship, so to speak, right?
Okay.
Which is mutual physical attraction. There was no way around that one. And we will talk about that because that's different from physical chemistry. And so please remind me.
Yeah, I definitely want to come to that because I have couples that struggle with this, right?
Exactly. So, and I know that that's the most representative group in our clinical work today, right?
Right.
Current situation. Shared vision, shared moral values, shared financial attitude. Financial attitude did not come up in my first research, which was really interesting.
Yeah, it's interesting that's coming up, but it is one of the, the big four, right? Money is a common thing people struggle with in a couple. So
absolutely. And it's really interesting. We also went back and did some factor analysis and regression analysis on the sample just to see whether it's the attitude towards money, like, for example, or not having it. Like, for example, the level of wealth, socioeconomic status. How would that, it was the attitude, that shared financial attitude that mattered. And then the third one from the bottom, if you count.
So wait, let me just pause for a second. So these dyadic ones can also improve?
They can improve.
Okay.
The only thing is, if a couple comes to you, first of all, they need to understand, like at the end, I will mention that there is a test that they can take. It's called Relationship Panoramic.
Okay.
And the reason for the name is I wanted us as practitioners to have a tool that really gives us a holistic perspective of the coupledom. So, for example, I've had couples who came to me after 4 years of seeing other colleagues, and they improved tremendously, amazingly in their communication, whatnot. And then one of them contacted me after 4 years and said, well, you know what? We are improving on all fronts. We're not talking about our sexual issues.
Yeah.
Or, for example, you know what? We talk a lot about this and that, but we have no hobbies together, no shared interest. So these are the ones that I really, as a couples person, couples lover, I really would like to have that panoramic view of the couple there.
Right. Because it's systemic, it's holistic.
Right? Exactly, you said it. Systemic. It's not ad hoc. And I completely value process model. I completely value the present-oriented model, that whatever that the client presents. But you know what, Jessa? I really think that people are not looking for just to vent to someone. They really look for our expertise.
Right.
You need to sit there and say, hey, look, based on all of these samples of couples that I've seen for 2 decades, here's where you fall. Here's how you need to improve. And here is how you're going to get into pickle later.
Right. And if we're talking about creating love, building it as an emergent model, right, as an outcome, that takes some effort and attention, right? So let's figure out where to put the effort and the attention.
Exactly. So, in Iran, we have a saying, we say in every relationship that is really thriving, we need a little bit of salt, a little bit of pepper. Right? But too much salt and too much pepper ruins it, right? Yeah. The other aspect of it, the way that I explain it here in English language, is every couple of them has cracks. Every couple of them. Yeah. I mean, we are not going to match with each other, and otherwise we are just mushy and right? But if we don't pay attention to the cracks, which we don't, because sometimes we don't know, sometimes we ignore, sometimes we love the other person too much.
Yeah, and we're overlooking that, or I'm just not going to pay attention. Or
Exactly. And we have science behind that we do that. We look away, right?
Yeah.
Over a period of time, the words that I hear a lot from my couples is we drifted apart.
Right.
There is a chasm that we cannot cross. There is a canyon. I often look at Relationship Panoramic as a tool to help us figure out the cracks, work on them before they become canyons.
Yeah.
So where, as you said, where to put the intention?
Yeah, it seems to me that the cracks just over time might become canyons.
Yes.
And under pressure. Right? Like a couple can be functioning pretty well, but then there's a death in the family or an illness or a layoff or, some sort of pressure that could just, it seems to me, splinter that, right? That's where.
Absolutely.
Yeah.
Absolutely. And imagine that couple, which is all of us.
Right.
Through life is life, right? And we have poor communication to begin with.
Yeah.
We don't have that much respect. We don't have that much compassion.
Right.
Then where does that leave us, right?
Right. Right.
Now, going back to the four pillars of this, one was individual fundamentals. The other one was dyadic fundamentals. The third one is interpersonal dynamics.
Okay.
First of which is respect.
Mm-hmm.
The other one is compassion. The other one is love. The other one is commitment. And the other one is trust. Right?
Boy, and I'm just thinking of all the couples I know that struggle with at least one of those, right? Like, yeah.
So the reason I call them interpersonal dynamics is that I have a lot of couples that come to me and say that I don't feel respected.
Yeah.
And then I ask them, what do you do to be respect worthy?
Yeah.
So these are the rather choices that we make in every single day. So this is intentional. Or I choose to be loving towards you. Right? And over a period of time, the act of being loving that creates that.
Right. It's not just a feeling that happens to you, right? It's a verb to love.
Exactly.
Yeah.
Also, it's a state of being.
Yeah.
Like, for example, the way that my couples ask me, how can I be respected by my partner? I tell them, can we just switch the words first? Just say, how can I be respectful?
Yes.
So many people do respect, do compassion, do love, do commitment. There was a while back that I love to say love is a verb. And I still think that it's a choice, right?
Yeah.
But over a period of time, Jessa, I came to question that as well. I felt like, is this really a verb or is this really a state of being?
Yeah.
If I'm respectable by you as a peer. I'm respectable by my child. I'm respectable, in my community.
Right.
So I felt like, okay, compassionate, the same thing. Trust, the same thing.
Right. You don't just do this in your dyadic relationship. You do this in life, right? It's your being. Yeah.
Exactly. So this is also hopeful because we can also help our people, individual or couple. And then the fourth level is the relationship outcome. So we did all of that. We worked on all of that. What will happen? My couples tell me that we are a good fit. That's the first thing we heard. We're a good fit. Whatever that means. From my perspective, might be terrible. And I know that, your audience probably goes, Sarah, it was very surprising to see Jenny with Josh, for example.
Right.
But it's not for us to tell if they feel like, they're a good fit, very good for them, right? The other one is the global satisfaction rate is higher. They have a sense of thriving. And sexual satisfaction, they report sexual satisfaction and also health benefits. They take care of themselves, they sleep well, they're not as nervous, stressed, preoccupied with the partner or the relationship. So these are the ones, and just that this is the Relationship Panoramic is not just a questionnaire, it's a validated questionnaire, which I don't know as many people out there could differentiate. Yeah,
right. What does that mean?
Right? So there are so many questionnaires out there, very helpful for self-awareness, right?
Yes.
Oh, so I have this, I have that, but they're not necessarily validated. A validated questionnaire, for example, for Relationship Panoramic, we had 4 other validated questionnaires by colleagues: Love Attitude Scale, Experience with Close Relationship, Dyadic Relationships in Revised, the newer version. And we had General Couple Satisfaction Survey. And so these were the ones, and Sexual Satisfaction. So these were the ones that we put together against Relationship Panoramic, just to make sure that we make sense. And also this is replicable, and this is scientifically solid and sound. So
meaning if they work on these things, if they work on their individual fundamentals, their couple fundamentals, the relationship dynamic part, they can achieve these outcomes, right?
Absolutely.
Happiness, thriving, health issues. Hey, this is Jess. I'm just taking a quick break, and I want to make sure you know about the guide I wrote about how to talk to your partner about sexual concerns. This comes up a lot in my practice. People have struggles, and it takes them so long to bring it up with their partner. They're afraid that that conversation is going to go badly. Their partner's going to be upset. The partner's going to be defensive, or they just don't know how to talk about sex and sexual problems. Common problem. So I wrote this guide that really helps you address this. It helps you prepare for the conversation, how to introduce the conversation, and then tips about how to actually get through the conversation so that you can change things with your partner as a team. If you are interested in this guide, you can find it at bettersexpodcast.com/guide. Again, bettersexpodcast.com/guide. Happy to send it to you. It was interesting to hear, and I get, based on what you're saying, that sexual satisfaction is an outcome, not an ingredient, you know?
Yes, and thank you. Because sexual satisfaction is an outcome of all of this, because as I mentioned, physical attraction should be there. I had couples who came and they haven't had sex forever. Over a course of time, they were able to consume their sexual relationship. But I specifically had a woman, I remember that every time they had sex, she threw up.
Ooh.
So they're having sex. What is the problem? So when they came to me, they haven't had sex for 11 years, I think. And, she was threw up. So I'm not talking about that because that is clearly not working. There's something in the physiology of the situation, in the dynamic of the situation is not working, which is absolutely rare, right?
Right.
But one of the things that I wanted to point out here is when you have physical attraction to one another, it could be that really chemistry and whatnot, or just looking at somebody and say that I really would like to kiss that person. That attraction. People put it as he's my type, or people put it as I get tingling sensation, depending on how they describe it, right? So that could be physical chemistry or whatnot. But one of the things that I invite people to look at is you need to be physically attracted to the person. And I hope you know what type you're attracted to. To you, because that would be a part of the work that they need to do on themselves.
Mm-hmm.
And physical attraction, depending on who looks at it, defines it differently. From evolutionary perspective, we say the better genes attract us. I'm coming from a sociocultural constructivist background, like a philosophy.
Right.
I believe that sexual attraction is socially constructed for the majority of its parts.
Mm-hmm.
Right? And so these are the things that you first determine. Where are you coming from? How are you approaching this whole issue? Who told you who you should be attracted to or not? So when you deconstruct that, then that's important. And if you find that you have sexual chemistry with somebody, how you are going to nurture that to create sexual harmony. That's really important. You could have sexual chemistry with somebody, but you could be very clumsy if you put two bodies together.
Right.
So these are the things that are very, very important.
So I'm thinking about couples who struggle with attraction for each other. And so based on what you're saying, we could deconstruct where we've learned these ideas of what's attractive. And then maybe we uncover, we free ourselves to feel attracted to somebody that culturally we maybe have been told not to, or something like that.
Yes, absolutely. And the other thing is, many of the people who say I'm not attracted to this person or the other person, the first question I have is, are you attracted to yourself?
Yes.
Most of it, right? Most of it, as what we find, is a projection of if I don't like to get naked in front of anyone,
right,
or to be touched by anyone, to be intimate or vulnerable, let's start from us.
Right.
From the personal self.
Yeah. And the other thing I'm thinking is that some people, when I think about clients, some people may not look at their partner and get turned on. It's not like they're sexually attracted in that sense, but they're attracted to move forward and want to kiss. They're attracted to the person inside. I think this goes beyond just visual attraction, right?
I completely agree with you. And the other thing is, when you said it, in our I wish there was a way that we could just make science more accessible for everybody so they know what we know.
Yeah.
Much easier. For some of it, we don't have science, but for these, we do. Now we know that there was a time in Helen Kaplan's time that we thought desire comes before arousal. That
Right.
is true. Arousal comes
Right.
before
Right.
desire, right? So these are the things that, if we know, then we can actually help when we put our couples together, if they move well together, if they are. Peggy Kleinplanz has a book coming out next year called Magnificent Sex. She talks great deal about if your sex is not good, the mechanics of it. If sex is not good, then why do you want it?
Yeah.
So many of my couples come to me and say that, well, I really, really, at the beginning, I enjoyed it. And most couples actually in the Western world is like that at the beginning, we were very good. But it fizzled out. And then they realized, I realized that was my bad. I realized after a while that I should ask them about their technique. How are they doing it?
Yeah.
Because if they feel like, you can't just expect that you put two people together and they know what they're doing.
I mean, I talk to clients about this all the time. The idea is supposed to just be natural and just happen, and you shouldn't have to communicate. It's like all of those are myths.
Yes.
Right?
And you said a very key word here, Jessa. Another thing that I find problematic for my couples around sex is that sometimes they talk too much.
Well, yes. Yeah.
I feel like, you talk a lot about your relationship. Sometimes I sit in the session, honestly, and I listen for 20 minutes. And I'm like, okay, nice to meet your relationship. Very nice. I learned some things about this relationship, but are you in it?
Yeah.
Because they talk so much. They analyze so much. And that's wonderful to have literacy, to have the vocabulary and literacy to communicate and all of that. But also let's move on to fluency and proficiency. And how are we being in this sexual space, as Esther Perel puts it, right?
Right.
Sexuality is, having sex is a space that we go to, not just something that we do.
Right.
So these are the ones that I think if we really don't take things for granted, everything that we're just handed in to us, right? I never forget, I don't know if I ever mentioned it to you. I was interviewed in Radio Zurich in Switzerland, and the gentleman who was interviewing me said, well, I hope you're not offended, but can I ask you a question? I said, well, sure. Anything else? There's a sexologist here.
Right,
Go.
right, exactly.
He said, well, why does your profession exist? I said, that's a very good question. Where does that come from? He said, well, shouldn't this be very spontaneous and natural? I said, yes, if you want to make a baby.
Right. Procreation comes pretty naturally, right? Anything beyond that?
Yeah. And that also hits a lot of problems, right?
Yes.
So it's a very interesting misconception that sex is not just something that we do anymore.
Right.
We want pleasure, we want connection, we want vulnerability, we want shared experiences, we want exclusivity, we want, all of that. Sex is such a scapegoat, like love. One person asked me to define love. I said, look, love is a scapegoat, confused, confusing, overrated, misunderstood, and undernourished. Like, that's as far as my English allows.
Yeah, right.
It's the same with sex that, couples come and then they feel like, okay, so if we are not having that hot, passionate sex, then the interpretation is, I'm not in love with you. We are not a good fit. We have to just go separate ways.
Yeah.
So that's very interesting.
So I'm thinking about your third level here. What you call it? The relationship...
interpersonal dyadics.
Interpersonal dyadics, right? Respect, compassion, love, commitment, trust. I mean, I guess I can see why those get built up on the other things, right? Because I just know so many couples that come into therapy are struggling with these things, at least one of them. They're not respectful. They have no compassion for each other, whatever it is. So I guess it really is about strengthening the base level individually and then the dyadic level, right? So that they can get to this place of strength that we
Yes.
want to get them to. Yeah.
And one of the things that is very interesting, initially I had them in a pyramid level that, in the individual fundamentals come first. And then the more we continued the research, and I'm now teaching this to colleagues and getting feedback, I realized that maybe we should even put them all in equal pillars.
Yeah.
Because it feels like, as you mentioned, that there is no couple that we see in our offices that doesn't struggle with one of these.
Right.
Right? It's just impossible. Like, that's one that is actually very interesting. The other thing that I wanted to do for our profession specifically and for the world is, I was trying to put down my mission statement in life. And I was thinking, between the work that I do for the UN, for the, different organizations, who am I? What am I doing even? And it's very funny. I was running a workshop for a corporate, like a leadership training and brand building. And then a woman came to the bathroom and said, "Excuse me, I hope you don't mind me ask you. I Googled you. You're a sexologist and, couples person. What are you doing teaching us this?" And but look, these are all the skills that you have from bedroom to boardroom.
Yeah.
And then that gave me an idea. So what I want to do with all of these is this, Jessa. Create world peace, one relationship at a time, right?
That's so funny because I have said my mission, I haven't said world peace. I've said I want to create a better world, one relationship at a time, because we're in a position to contribute and give and thrive,
Yes.
based on our relationship.
Exactly.
Our relationships, like I'm focused on couples and sex because that's my practice. You've got a broader lens, but it makes such a difference.
It does make a difference. We walk taller in the world. We treat the people differently, right?
Well, and we're not having to use our energy with worry and anxiety and avoidance. We're freed up to make a difference, right?
Exactly.
Yeah.
That's absolutely. And once you experience this, it's just maybe we're just working too hard for our couples because we know how it could be, how wonderful it could be.
Yeah.
I think that's one thing that I'm hoping. The other thing that I was hoping to do for our profession was that when you talk to the general public, they are so skeptical, some of them, actually most people, of seeking help from a couples therapist. I was talking to Ian Kerner, a good colleague of ours, Ian Kerner in New York, and I contributed to an article he wrote about when to seek couples therapy for the CNN. That was an article. It's actually out there if people want to read it. It's a good article, I think, because it reminds you that you shouldn't really wait until you see the canyon to seek help, right? If you see, even I love it when people come to me and say that we are so in love with each other. This is amazing. We're going to make it. We are just here to make sure we have a good path to follow. And I love you. Thank you for coming.
Yeah.
Because that's where we can be most effective.
Right. Or the very first sign of a crack, where it hasn't even started to fracture, but just like a little hint of it. And it's like, perfect. We can get in there.
The very beginning signs of, we are shaping a couple then, not even a crack, right?
Yeah.
Because I feel like, first of all, we don't have that much research to show that couples therapy work. And I'm being honest.
Yeah.
And the reason for that is when couples come to us, patterns are shaped already, canyons are there. And the best that we can do is to find good material to make a bridge. So it's constant work, it's harder work. And I don't know about you, but I find myself to put fire off for the first few sessions.
Yeah, sometimes, right. Depending on when they're coming in, right.
Exactly. So these are the ones that I think it will be really much, much better if they have a tool. That's why I thought, okay, so if I'm using this tool, I've been using this in my own practice.
Yeah.
I find it helpful for them to take it and then just take it to a therapist or a coach or, a professional and say, hey, this is the result. And so what do you reckon?
Yeah. So, okay. So that leads right into my last question, which is what can couples do with this information? So you've obviously got this test or tool available, right?
Yes. So individuals can take the test. I even created something for them to gift a friend. Instead of gifting them with romantic, whatever, or lingerie or, whatever, which is good as well. I think it's a nice gift for people who if they have like a couple friend who are going to get married, or like it's like a nice thing for them to do. And also for individuals. So there are two categories for this. Individuals who are in committed relationships in one way or the other, they can take the test, and their results with some personalized tips will be emailed to them.
Okay.
So that's one. And then they can take it, if they have a therapist or coach, they can take them to them and all that. And then the other one, and there's a very simple training that I put together that is completely accessible to professionals, like a freely accessible, that they can just request if they're interested. If they're listening to this and they're professionals, they can get in touch. For couples, when one of them feels it and then sends it to the other person feels it, and I highly recommend that they fill it up close to each other.
Yes.
Because we know how we feel. One day we love each other, one day we
exactly. It's a moment in time to some degree. Yeah.
Exactly. So we need both of them in one cross section of time. And then they will enter a name of a provider, their counselor, coach, whoever that, could interpret this for them. And the reason for that is, in couple them, it will be better to go through this with a professional so that we don't point fingers, we don't. So, it's a solid interpretation of the whole panoramic view.
Right. Okay. So very actionable. Plus, we've discussed these various building blocks that people might be saying already. Yes. Oh, I know we're not on the same page about money, so maybe we get some help about that, or have some conversations.
Exactly. And there are so many wonderful scales these days. And I know that some of our colleagues who are not psychologists, because, psychology was mainly based on pathology.
Mm-hmm.
So as counselors and therapists, we really try to move away from them. But sometimes I think we lose the sight on how useful this could be. These are not black or white. These are not like biblical, facts that we're presenting to people, right? But it's a very helpful tool. These and others, like the love attitude scale that I mentioned, attachment scale. Or for example, one of the videos that I always suggest to couples to watch is Anatomy of Trust by Brené Brown.
Okay.
That was an amazing work that she's done. Amazing. I use it when I want to hire people. I ask them to watch it, and then we discuss what is the building blocks of trust in our working relationship even.
Yeah.
So all of these are transferable, right? And I'm hoping with this to deconstruct love.
Yeah.
Really to bring everything together and then give a sense of agency and hope to people.
Well, and it makes it basically accessible, realizing it's an outcome or a product of effort and attention that, you can make it happen.
Exactly.
With some fundamental building blocks anyway. Yeah.
Absolutely. And you know how in our field we have sexual attitude reassessment?
Yes. Right.
So I'm combining this with LAR, love attitude assessment. Because I think many of the colleagues that I see, or at least I supervise, they also go by this status quo.
Right.
And I think we need a fundamental shift in our perspective also to be able to help people. I genuinely believe that everybody deserves to be in a relationship that they desire.
Yeah.
And I think we can make it happen.
Yeah. Well, thank you so much for sharing about this. Can you just share briefly where people can find you, where they could learn more?
Absolutely. So the easiest place to find me is my website, which is www.Sara, S-A-R-A, dash, like a regular dash, Nasserzadeh, NASSERZADEH.com.
I'll put that in the show notes.
And also I'm all over social media.
Yeah. Great. I'll put all of these links in the show notes so people can find them in one place. And again, thank you so much for taking the time and doing this really, really important work.
Absolutely. It's always lovely to sit with you, Jessa.
Yeah. Thanks.
Thank you.
You've been listening to Better Sex. Please visit our website, bettersexpodcast.com, for show notes and additional episodes.
And that's a wrap for today. I really hope you enjoyed the episode. If you are enjoying the podcast, if some of this material resonates with you and you would like to make a difference and make sure that this keeps coming out in the world once a week, ongoing, there are a couple things you could do to show your appreciation. The first would be to go to iTunes and rate and review the show. That really helps us be found by new listeners when you review the show on iTunes. You can find a link at bettersexpodcast.com/iTunes. The other thing I want to invite you to consider is becoming a Patreon. For a small monthly pledge, you get some benefits. So for $2 a month, you get advance access to every single episode. For $5 a month, you get a chapter of my upcoming new book. And for $10 a month, I host quarterly get-to-know-you and question-and-answer chats over the web, and you get invited to that. I would love to have your membership in that, become part of the Better Sex family. You can find a link at bettersexpodcast.com/Patreon, which is Patreon. Again, thanks for listening. I'm glad you're here. Feel free to comment, ask questions, get in touch. I'd love to hear from listeners. Thanks.